Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that the United States and Israel are
Uh-huh.
doing this again. I was surprised a bit about the timing of it, given
Right.
everything that you just noted, especially including the oil shock and the economic crisis underway. I was a bit shocked at the timing, but I wanted your assessment. Maybe you can help the audience understand the Omani corridor situation because um, not this is some people have said this is like the battle over the Strait of Hormuz. This the
Mhm.
restart 10 what is it 11, 12 days ago. Now even more intense in this current moment. And so help us understand what is this? Why? How did it come to be? I've seen some people on social media say Oman is betraying Iran, in this, but I'm curious on if you could help us understand the actual dynamics at play and it is a very precipitating factor in Iran hitting these tankers, and then of course Trump using that as an excuse to go back to war.
Well, I have this is privileged information, and I'm sharing with you and our audience. I don't know if I talked about this before in other places, but I don't think so. And this we got from the people at the table. Don't forget that at the table, the Pakistanis are the key mediators, but there are inputs from Qatar and Oman. So, what we heard from the people at the table is that for all practical purposes and in terms of what they discussed, the emir of Oman and the high level Iranian delegations that visited Muscat, they are on Iran's side. But because they are a very small sultanate, relatively fragile, they cannot possibly say that out loud and antagonize the empire of bombing. I think it fits the way they are behaving. But it's complicated because I think one of these tankers that broke the Iranian rules set by the RGC Navy to transit the Strait of Hormuz, one of these tankers was Omani, if I'm not mistaken. So that's okay. What is that? Double game, betrayal. So this has to be clarified, and I'm sure the Iranians will be asking questions to Oman. Was that a private uh, shipper decision, not coordinated with your government? Whatever. Was he bribed? You name it. So, for all practical purposes, in terms of negotiations, Oman is leaning towards Iran, but they cannot afford to antagonize the US directly. Or did the US force this tanker to go through the Omani territorial waters? It's very, very complicated, ultra tricky. And that's why this whole kabuki of the mediation per se, which Larry and I, we are fortunate to have access to what these guys are discussing on the table. But sometimes a lot of the information doesn't fit with what we see. So we make an effort to go beyond and say, okay, maybe this is so deep, 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 deep that we're just going to see this game being played later on, which is quite possible. The intentions of the mediators are the best possible intentions because essentially they are uh, because they enjoy the trust of the Iranians and because they have theoretically Oman, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia behind them as well in terms of the MOU cannot fail. We have to, by all means necessary, prevent that barbarian from restarting the war, which is what he's doing this week already. But there's lots of stuff that is lost in translation, Danny, and lost in the shuffle. And sometimes it doesn't add up. Just to give an idea to all of you, our audience, how complicated this stuff is. So, for instance, there are a lot of people, and I respect their opinions. They say, how can from one day to another you start believing or trusting Saudi Arabia and Qatar? That's a very, very good question. Because, okay, the only rational answer to this question is that they are looking at the way the chessboard is moving, and they know that they have to change their positioning because the wind is blowing towards Iran as a big power in West Asia. So what are you going to do? You're going to go against it. So that's the only logical, rational explanation. I'm not saying this is the only explanation. There may be others. And playing a double game could also be part of the whole thing. No question. We don't eliminate any hypothesis. Just to give all of you the measure of how tricky and tense the whole situation is, and who you're going to trust, wow, it's beyond complicated. We all know, and I'm sure all of the players in West Asia know who they cannot trust. That's more than obvious, right?
Right. Yes, definitely. Then the question is for you, Pepe. I wanted to ask you about the United States' particular target bank here is very focused on the Persian Gulf, the southern Iranian coast, Sarak, Keshem, Bandar Abbas, and some have speculated that this could be because perhaps the United States is actually angling toward a possible ground invasion of some kind to capture some island. I mean, Karg is always the one that comes up. Some have said maybe Keshem Island as some kind of, I don't know, fantastical idea of having some enforcement over the Strait of Hormuz. What do you make of that kind of potentiality? Because Trump, for all of his major flaws and all of what he represents in terms of dishonesty, it is something he constantly brings up when war restarts. So what's your thoughts on this?
Keshem is absolutely out of the question. It's hyper protected. You have everything, anti-everything position all across Keshem. And what are they going to do? They take over Keshem, and how do they get to the mainland? There's no way, because the southern part of the Persian Gulf bordering Keshem is ultra highly protected by the RGC Navy as well. Karg is very far away. What's the point? I'm very worried about Chabahar, because Chabahar would be essential in terms of the Americans reinstating their blockade. But if they reinstate their blockade, they are the ultimate losers, because then nothing will move out of the Strait of Hormuz, which is exactly what the Americans seem not to want. In fact, we don't know, but apparently they want the Strait of Hormuz unblocked. So if they block it again, it's their fault. And of course, this will have enormous repercussions among the Asian customers of everything that goes through the Strait of Hormuz. There will be a rebellion of the Asian customers. Some of them are, let's say, American colonies. Certainly not China. China is different. But if China sees that Iranian tankers are blocked by the Americans from going to China, or Chinese tankers are blocked by the Americans to the east of the Strait of Hormuz, they're going to the east of the Persian Gulf in Chabahar, they're going to do something, obviously. So all the options in terms of a possible ground invasion, for what? And you won't control anything. And the Iranian response are going to be, in terms of harassing these so-called American forces that managed to establish a bridgehead somewhere, it's going to be hell. This was already gamed, and this was already gamed, Danny. And the Pentagon knows that what kind of hell will be over there. Yeah. So all options for them are absolutely lousy, and they still insist in bombarding the only option that will be, relatively manageable. But of course, to start with, let's try to get into the minds of these gangsters. Mm-hmm. To accept the memorandum of understanding is essentially, glorified way, accepting your strategic defeat.
Yeah.
Because you did not set the terms of the MOU. Iran did. The 14 points are the 14 Iranian points, not your American points.
Right.
Psychologically for them, is out of the question. They will never accept it. And this is something that the Iranians should have foreseen from the beginning. In fact, many among the leadership did. For instance, everybody in the IRGC said this MOU is bullshit. But Arakshi, Kalibaf, Pezeshkian, let's hear. And of course, very, very important, which is something that could change starting tomorrow. The best version that we have coming from people close to Mojtaba's inner circle is that he deferred the decision about the ceasefire and the MOU to the Supreme National Security Council, 13 members. At least 2 of these are progressives, including the president Pezeshkian. The other ones are mostly IRGC or IRGC linked. They are much more hardline. But even then, in the end, essentially Mojtaba told them, look, if you have a solid majority, go ahead. I bless your decision. So I think this is the best possible public version of what happened. But now he can change his mind because everybody's seeing for themselves that the Americans blew up the MOU that they signed. So what's the point of even continue to discuss an MOU? Which, until the beginning of this week, we were, according to the echoes that we had, okay, there's a tentative date, Saturday, July 11th, for the delegation from the U.S. delegation for Iran to go to Islamabad and restart the negotiations. But this was practically a done deal before the Americans decided to blow it up. So now we restart with the Dead Cat MOU, in fact, right?
Yeah, and Pepe, there's really only been one force that's been outside of Iran. I guess when we look at the war initiators, there's only been one force that's been very consistent in their position on restarting the war, and that's been Israel. Israel's defense ministry said that they are ready for round number 3. They even named it as a round 3 of war. We know that they're participating in these strikes. When I heard 2 days ago, when was it, 48 hours ago, the U.S. started conducting strikes again, my first thought was, Israeli and American so-called decision makers, thirsty. I think they were very thirsty at the prospect of even hitting the funeral itself. I don't have evidence of that, but I'm sure if they felt like they could, I think they were maybe a little too scared of Iranian air defenses. But if they, I feel like a lot of this has to do with the funeral. It's how big it was, what was being said there. The ships, of course, the Trump administration is going to make a big deal about the tankers being hit. But why were they going through that corridor in the first place during this? It was an obvious provocation. And obviously, the United States has a lot to do with why they were going through that corridor. So, Pepe, what are your thoughts on this? The connection between the timing of these strikes and the funeral, I can't be lost here.
Of course not, because this is also a diversionist tactic, right? They obviously, anybody with a bloody smartphone can see that these images are all over the planet, especially all across the global south, in terms of a popular manifestation of national.
Oh, Pepe, I think we lost you. If you come back, you were saying everyone can see this is a popular manifestation of national, and then we lost you. So hopefully Pepe is able to return. Pepe, you're back, I think.
Yes, I'm back.
I can see you.
Why my Wi-Fi is good? My Wi-Fi went crazy. Now it's back. I'm so sorry.
No, you were saying this is a manifestation of popular national, and then you got
exactly popular respect, national cohesion, popular solidarity, paying tribute to the life of a spiritual, religious, political leader that started as a revolutionary, in fact, a friend of the global South, respected all across the global South. And irrespective of political persuasions, social classes, people from the big cities, from the rich neighborhoods to the poorer neighborhoods, from the provinces everywhere, not to mention in Iraq, where people from all over Iraq, not only from Najaf and Karbala, which are two relatively very, very, very small places, but from all over Iraq, this Shiite solidarity, Iran, Iraq, this is immensely powerful, not only in the Muslim world among the Ummah, but across the global South. So can you imagine the usual suspects looking at that and basically seeing that the people that they support in the Arab world, which is Salafi jihadi, Wahhabi minorities, in fact, total jihadists or Salafists and indoctrinated by online Salafists, etc., which are a minority, they were completely isolated. And you see this popular demonstration of Shiite unity in a funeral ceremony, rituals with something conducted with extreme dignity, with all these foreign delegations coming to Tehran to pay their respects and the tribute. So this is an immensely powerful message, not only to West Asia, but to the rest of the planet. So they had to do something to divert the attention from it. So they start, what do? They restart the bombing. There you go. It's what they do. No? They kill women, they kill children, they provoke a genocide, they attack civilian infrastructure, they lie, they cheat, they steal, as some of their lowly functionaries admit on the record, and they start bombing all over again. Their president, that's what their president says all the time. I'm fed up with this thing. I'm going to bomb again. No deal was there. These people are scum, so let's bomb them. So this is a... and I like some of one of the posts that Arakshi wrote, which was something so elegant. He said, look, we're not going to reply to vulgarity with vulgarity. The vulgarity of the government of the United States nowadays has gone intergalactic, in fact. And one of the things that keep the profile of Iran in terms of soft power all over the world is that they are elegant, that they are extremely civilized, dealing with a bunch of gangsters, and they're not going to change. They'll not start hurling insults against anybody in the US. No, it's not how they do it. And when you look how they organize the ceremonies honoring their assassinated leader, how elegant the whole thing was. And this was recognized by the foreign delegations, that some of them sent delegations at the highest level. The Russians sent the number 2 in the government. They sent Medvedev. That's a pretty big statement. The Chinese sent a parliamentary, ultra high level delegation. So that's it. It's I would say that this is the ultra sharp contrast between civilization and barbarism. And going on a more pop culture note, we have the president of the United States who thinks that he can steal a decision in the World Cup, which is the number 1 sports event on the planet, by forcing the president of FIFA to cancel a red card, which is something that never happened in the history of football. So this tells everybody everything they need to know. That's it. This is the pop culture example of this is a bunch of fucking gangsters.
Yeah, and just the way that the Iranian football team was treated,
and the way
to travel in and out of the country. They couldn't even stay in the country.
And this, everybody in the global South, Danny, they saw
Yep.
Everything that the Americans and FIFA together did to let's get rid of Iran. They
Yep.
did not lose a single match. So they exit with their honor up there, with the respect of the whole footballing world and the respect of the whole global south, because they saw what was happening.
Yeah.
There you go.
And this is a country at war. This is a country that just until recently had been under sanctions. Of course, those sanctions are back on, but they were only lifted for a matter of days. So here
Days.
is exactly what Abbas Araghchi said. As you said, addressing the civilized and courageous nation of Iran with derogatory language does not diminish its greatness. Iranians are
Mhm.
known for their civility, culture, and strong moral values. We don't answer vulgarity with vulgarity, but with action, fearlessly, with great valor. And
It's a
Pepe,
good
I think
thing,
no,
right,
please.
Danny? This is definitely not war a lago.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, Pepe, some might misunderstand Iran in the sense that, people get really worried, as we all should be, when a major war is restarting. But I think there's actually a lot of calculations being made that are actually strategic in the sense that while Iran, of course, views these strikes as significant and any attack on it is significant, we even have today, Tasnim just reported as we've been speaking that there has been the Mashhad railway line restored in a
Oh,
matter of
that's very
hours,
impressive. They did that in a matter of hours, Danny. Amazing.
indicating that either these strikes were either ineffective or not as strong as assumed when CENTCOM, pushes its chest out and Trump pushes his chest out. But
Mhm.
also that Iran is very much prepared and perhaps calculating exactly how severe this new escalation is, because it, as you said, it's an escalation ladder. It is not
It is.
a dive. It is not a dive into the pool, so to speak. So your thoughts on this? I don't think a lot of people understand this in particular, because maybe in the US and the West, a lot of times when there are attacks on maybe smaller countries or perceived weaker countries, that the thought process is, well, if they're not stopped ASAP, there's going to be a major catastrophe. I don't think Iran is operating along those lines. Your thoughts
Well,
on
well,
this?
they're not. Coming back to what we were discussing a few minutes ago, there are different schools of thought and discussion in Iran at the moment on how should we proceed from now on. We keep strategic patience, we get a little more hardcore, or we go total hardcore. So there's, for the moment, it seems there is no consensus. This is being actively debated in Iranian platforms everywhere, and of course, the attention of everyone at the moment is on the funeral ceremony. So this is the last day. Starting tomorrow, the attention of the country once again will be totally focused on the return of the escalation ladder and how should Iran react. They don't take their decisions impulsively. This is very, very important. Number one. Number two, from now on, after Daddy Khamenei, let's put it this way to be affectionate, is buried, now the whole responsibility is on the hands of his son, on Mushtaba. So, how will Mushtaba imprint his total authority after? Okay, we closed the previous era, we start a new one. Mushtaba is the leader. He enjoys consensual respect from the political vector and the military vector. The nation is under an existential threat, is being bombed again. The economy is in a very, very, very complicated state. So, what will be his major decisions? And that includes, of course, how from now on are we going to tweak our response to the empire totally out of control? So, this will be the big question starting tomorrow. And depending on what they will be discussing, we're going to see examples in how they're going to handle the possibility of a return of the negotiations mediated by the Pakistanis. The Pakistanis are telling us that they are doing everything they can to try to bridge the unbridgeable gap. Everybody, and that I mean everybody: Turkey, Egypt, Saudi, Qatar, Oman. Emirates doesn't count because Emirates, they are still at war with Iran, and it's later. But the Pakistanis said, look, we're trying to get Emirates on board, but it's a long process. Everybody wants to, okay, let's have some sort of at least civilized discussion. Is it possible with this president of the United States? Everybody knows it's not, but and they're still trying. So that's it. Now, in a certain sense, the ball is in leader Moshtaba Khamenei's court now. He is going to decide: are we going to continue with a variation of strategic patience? Is our patience exhausted? Are we going to inflict serious damage to the United States? Or we don't do anything. We just wait, because we know there are a few deadlines that are totally adverse to the Trump administration coming. So that's where we are, Denny, at the moment. Big crossroads. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll just pull this up so people can get a sense of just how big it is right
The
now to
crowds
reach out Iran.
Wow.
This
Yeah.
is, I mean, it's an incredible scene. And it makes me wonder, with all the videos circulating of Trump heads and Trump posters being stoned in Iran. And I just wonder, Pepe, are these strikes going to change their minds about the current situation with the war and their take on it, which is, revenge and getting justice for the crimes that are committed, not least the assassination and the murder of the supreme leader and his family, but also how about the thousands of others who were killed, the hundreds of children who were killed, including
Children.
168 in just a strike in Manab. So this is another factor I've been asking people to comment on. The people factor. Like, this is a big part of U.S. war, is to be able to push the internal situation inside of a country into either instability or a favorable political situation toward U.S. ends and Israeli ends. This doesn't seem to be the recipe for success in that arena. Pepe, your thoughts about that?
Oh, no, definitely not, Danny. There is a national consensus that you can frame it as revenge, but this is too a reductionist
Right.
explanation. In terms of, no, they're going to have to pay for what they did.
Right.
They attacked us directly, unprovoked. They killed our leader. They killed a great deal of our political leadership. They bombed us. They continue to bomb us. They said that they will stop and they will sit on the table and discuss it. And they bombed the discussion over and over again. So how can we possibly trust? And the element of trust. And this is something that now you can see in some of the things that coming from the Majlis, coming from the Ministry of Foreign Relations, there was never any element of trust with them. We knew we couldn't trust them from the beginning. And now we have proof after proof after proof that they are untrustworthy. But what does that mean? We're going to have a system of no war, no peace lasting indefinitely. Iran cannot live with that. Iran cannot properly function with that. They need to start rebuilding. There won't be any closure, of course. And some sort of revenge about the assassination of leader Khamenei, this is something that could last for years, the process, until they get there. And they're very, very, don't forget, Shiites are extremely patient. They don't do things in a rash way. Forget it. But in terms of normalizing life in Iran, they need it for the system and for the population. Right. And normalizing with the neighbors, which is a process that has already started. For instance, the normalization with the rest of West Asia is possible. The only vector that is totally impossible is, of course, the death cult. Israel. But nobody normalizes with Israel. By definition, this is impossible. But Iran re-emerging as a big power in West Asia and a big power in the global South, they need to start, of course, healing, rebuilding, rebuilding the relationships with the neighbors, the new security architecture of West Asia, which will basically involve Iran, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia, essentially. So for all that to start moving in a, I wouldn't say high velocity, but at least some velocity, at least they have to make sure that they won't be bombed by the United States every week. It's as simple as that, you know. And there's no guarantee. With this president, there's no guarantee. Because he does not respect laws of common, I would not even say diplomacy, but common sense.
No.
And even acting in his own interest when he knows that he has a potential catastrophe around the corner for his country, his economy, and the global economy. And he still behaves like a bloody, stupid brat with the brain of a retarded whatever. It's ridiculous.